What exactly do you do for work with adolescents?
So my husband and I founded Guardian Recovery in 2008, which is behavioral health, largely substance use around the country, mental health. And then we have an adolescent program, which is really where I spend my time. So I'm considered the adolescent care director. I oversee the program, and then I do teen coaching. So I work directly with teenagers, which ends up being parent coaching too. So that's really what I love. That's kind of where I found my purpose. Being 23 years sober, I've helped a lot of women in recovery, which I certainly love. But the teenagers is really where I thrive.
What age do they start in your program?
13.
So you are with 13 to 19-year-olds?
13 to 17. In the state of Florida, when they turn 18, they have to move to an adult facility.
Okay. And you're seeing substance abuse 13 to 17 years old.
Yeah. We also are looking at a lot of mental health stuff. So sometimes 13, it just looks like dabbling. So nicotine is huge. Maybe they are starting to smoke a little weed, and then behavior stuff. So school refusal, difficulty in school. And then a lot of the kids have, some learning differences that are really just being addressed from the academic perspective. And when you look at that stuff clinically, that really shapes how they see themselves and then in turn, how they show up in the world. So a lot of times that leads to behavioral stuff too.
What is the number one nicotine use, like what form at the age of like 13, 14 in the early stages?
Vaping.
Vaping.
Yes. Yep. And vaping starts early. I have a son going to 6th grade next year, and I'm already talking to him about vaping. What it looks like, how to say no to it, what to say about it, how to feel about it. I mean, it's a huge thing.
What is the best way to coach? Because it's like a curiosity thing, right?
Totally.
What is the best way to coach, let's say you're a sixth grader, through it so that you kind of air out that curiosity?
I think just being super open, and then I have always coached my kids on, we role play on what to say, because a lot of times you just get caught with your pants down. And when you're going through that stage of life and you're feeling insecure, you sometimes will just say yes because you don't know what else to say. So I've always told them to let me be the crazy person. So like my son, we actually were talking about it the other day. I'm like, if somebody offers you a vape, like, what are you going to say? And they're always confident when they're with you. So he's like, Mom, I would not do that. But I said, do you know that parents can test for nicotine? They're nicotine tests. So I have those. So you can always say to your friends, yo, my mom is crazy. Like my parents own a drug rehab. She's straight crazy. And she's already testing me. Yeah. Whatever you need to say to get yourself out of that while still maintaining your cool, I'm cool with.
Yeah.
So that starts young with the nicotine. And then I've always told my big kids too, I have 18-year-old twins, when they were like 14, 15, if somebody offers you that, you just tell them your mom's crazy. She drug test.
Yeah. What is so let's say someone comes into your program. How long do they typically stay? Let's say they're 14 years old. They enter your program. They're already using nicotine. Parents see this behavior that potentially could lead to a larger drug addiction, and they're headed down the wrong path. How long do people stay in your program for?
So our program in New Jersey is typically a 45-day program. So it's more of like stabilization. So we're looking at two kind of different kids. So one would be a kid that's early on, just starting to have trouble. The parents want to have an impact right out of the gate, let them know this is how this is going to go. And to hopefully shape them, not scare them, educate them on you kind of don't want to turn down this path. So 45 days, and then they return home, maybe do our virtual program with some coaching in-house. Or it's a kid who's maybe already been to rehab, struggling on a higher scale, bigger drugs. They come, they stabilize, and the family gets a plan of what do we do next. There are longer term programs that, some kids need a year long, recovery, like help. So yeah, so that's, kind of the two different kids. And that depends on the age, the drugs they're using, Also what the parents are willing to do from a financial perspective, but also, are they really willing to hold the line?
Yeah. It's when you get to the bigger and stronger drugs. So for me, it was Oxycontin.
Yeah.
I had to get locked down in a 30-day inpatient. And then I did sober living after that long term. I needed it.
Yes.
And it helped me tremendously. I needed that structured living and bridge back to life slowly.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like doctors, physicians, pilots, I mean, these people typically go in these programs that are like 5 years. So they have accountability for a really long time. So their ability to stay sober is higher. Yeah. Regular people like you and I, we get sober and then what? So if we're not in an environment that holds us accountable, it's really hard to stay sober.
Mm-hmm. And that accountability over time turns into, one's identity, like who they become. And they're able to kind of run, fly away from the pack, so to say, so to speak. So it's when I first was approaching the end of my sober living stay, I was like, oh my God, like I don't have these accountability measures. I was coming up on a year of sobriety. I was freaking out. And then it wasn't all that bad. I was able just to kind of go off free and maintain that structure, going to my meetings, calling my sponsor, doing my step work, and then helping other people, taking on sponsees, et cetera. So it's amazing how that works when you have those accountability measures in place, that first year or so. Hey guys, quick update. Starting Monday, August 25th, I'm hosting a weekly open recovery meeting. It's for any addiction. Whether you're struggling with alcohol, drugs, gambling, food, you name it, everyone is welcome. If you want to get updates and the meeting link each week, just email me at kevin@riseabovepod.com to join the list. Again, that's kevin@riseabovepod.com. Put Rise Above Meeting in the subject, and I'll add you to the list. Lastly, so that we can continue to spread the message of hope, please drop us a like or subscribe. And on streaming platforms, if you could please leave us a rating, it helps us reach more people. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's like you don't slip into a relapse typically, but when you're coming off of that accountability, it's scary because you're like, can I do this? You know, my girlfriend's a pharmacist and she was in this program for 5 years. Every single morning she had to call in every morning and it would tell her when she had to go, give a drug screen. And when the 5 years were up, she was so scared. She was like, should I re-sign myself up? I'm like, my God, it's 5 years. I think you're okay. But she legitimately relied on the accountability. Yeah. She'd lose her license if she got high. And so, it takes what it takes. You have to know what you need.
Yeah. So you have a story of your own. You're 23 years sober.
I am. I just celebrated May 30th.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you to you for paving the way for those who came in after you, like myself. The rooms and recovery today is so strong and it helps so many people. So thank you.
Of course.
Where are you from originally and what was early childhood like?
So I was born in Tucson, Arizona. My parents are from Iowa, but they were hippies and ended up in Tucson. We lived in Tucson and Rama, New Mexico, where my brother was born on an Indian reservation. They were just kind of smoking peyote and chilling, really. My dad ended up going to school at the University of Arizona. And so my early childhood was really like that, like probably really very, very free. My parents met when they were 16, I think. They're still madly in love. So a ton of love. My dad used to joke that we were rich with love. We ended up rolling our eyes because we were also broke. So I look back on that time now as a parent and great childhood, We ended up kind of going wherever my dad needed to go for his career. He ended up getting his doctorate. We went from Arizona to New Mexico to Georgia, Athens, Georgia. And then North Carolina. And I stayed there until I was in 6th grade, which again was like pretty organic. And I have 3 brothers. So a big family, tons of fun, lots of sports, no money, but no focus on that. And in 6th grade, my dad got a job at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida, and we moved there. And I would say, and when I tell my story in AA, I feel like that's when like shit really got rough for me.
When you moved to South Florida.
Yes. With like a bad haircut and no bra. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody had money and like I'd never even heard of a French manicure.
Mm-hmm.
I was so ill prepared for the environment and all the focus on money and clothes. And I just like played basketball and, you know, just so out of my league. So I would say those years were my first real experiences with like feeling inadequate and out of place and insecure. Because prior to that, my 3 brothers and I were in the same school. And if you could run fast, which we could, we were popular. And there was 4 of us. So, you know, I was never alone. And then when I moved to Florida, my brother went to high school. My 2 younger brothers went to elementary school. So I was for the first time on my own and really feeling insecure. So I think that was a layup for probably, like, as they say, epigenetics in your environment. Your genetics meets your environment. So like, obviously I believe I was predisposed with some like addiction genetics. And when that met the feelings of insecurity and inadequacy, it was a layup for a bad road towards alcoholism. So in middle school, I met some kids and started drinking. And it was quick for me, you know. I think the way it looked on the outside may have been a little bit slow, but the feelings were fast, you know. So that was probably like 7th grade.
Did you jump to that first drink, or was it like we were just talking about the peer pressure? You just wanted to feel part of, and was it?
I was wild, you know, like I loved, prior to alcohol, I was always the one who would jump off the high thing and I got a lot of accolades for that. I think I looked around and my family's very productive. My dad is a doctor in exercise science. He was a triathlete. Everybody was like doing good shit. And I think I looked around and like, the lazy part of me was like, yeah, like I'll just jump off this, you know? And I got a lot of accolades for that. You know, my brothers would often say, oh, my sister will do it. So when that personality met alcohol, I don't think there was a lot of peer pressure. Like I wanted to be the one to go hard, to do the thing, to take the shot. So no, for me, it wasn't peer pressure. It was more interest.
Yeah.
And probably, I didn't know then, but I know now, probably a desire for escape.
Yeah. So what was that first drink like for you? You said you had some, I believe you said insecurity moving here down to South Florida, and you said the feelings were immediate. What did it do for you?
I just think it gave me like, because I didn't fit in Florida. I didn't fit in middle school. And, you know, I was stressed all day. Like just the, you know, I would hear about drugs, which I'd never been introduced to. I was going through puberty, like all these things. And then I'd sneak out with these kids and we would get drunk and it was just freedom. You know, it was just freedom. You know, it's like kind of like fucking scuba diving when you get under and it's silent.
Yep.
You know, it was an escape for me. And I liked it right out of the gate. I would, you know, after the first night, I would say, hey, you guys want to do that again? And they're like, yeah, like maybe next week, you know?
No, like tonight.
Like, let's go. So, yeah, for me, it was an escape early. And it was also, the other thing that happened pretty early was I had the dual life thing, like really early too, because I was starting to play competitive, if you can play anything competitive in 7th grade, competitive basketball, which my family was really hyped about. And I had this like super close relationship with my family where we ate dinner together every night. Everybody told each other everything. And then I was simultaneously sneaking out and getting drunk. So I was starting to harbor secrets and, you know, having to get up and go to school after drinking, you know, so I was starting to like young version, but live a little bit of a dual life.
Yeah. So you go on to high school. What was your high school experience like?
Well, so interestingly, when I was in, I think 9th grade, I made the USA All-Star team to travel to Ireland and Russia to play basketball. And when we went to Ireland, so we traveled there. And I was starting to harbor secrets. I was starting to live this life that was like, I was starting to separate from my family a little bit and starting to have anxiety and stuff like that. We went to Ireland, and in Ireland, I stayed with like a host family, and they drank these hot toddies at night, and they would give them to you. Now, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure I got more of them than they were giving. But I distinctly remember the feeling of feeling anxious and discontent. I was also traveling away from my family and drinking this thing and feeling the like ease, like wash over me. And I think that was my first experience with knowing deeply that alcohol worked. I had a fucking problem. And if I drank this, it at the very least dissipated.
Yeah.
So
how does one make the U.S. basketball team in ninth grade? What are you, 14, 15?
Yeah. Well, they call it the U.S., but let's not get it too twisted. It was based in Florida. Like you tried out for this team. I don't know. I mean, there were hundreds of kids who tried out, and I think they picked like 12 kids. And I was picked for the Russia team only based on my 3-point shot. Like I was not big enough. I wasn't, I wasn't a lot of things, and most of the kids were older. But when we tried out, I was just on one that day, and I was just hitting them from the outside. And that really is what they happened to have been looking for. So I only was put in for that and then pulled right back out.
Got it.
So when I played in Russia, I didn't really get a lot of time. In Ireland, I was a little bit older, and I excelled a little bit more.
Yeah. So you are drinking through high school.
Yep.
Do you end up graduating high school?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And do you go on to college?
Yep. So I drank through high school relatively normally. I mean, I always looked a little bit wilder than everybody I was with, but I managed to get through high school fine. But graduated, I don't know, maybe with like a 2.5 GPA. I mean, just always kind of sliding under. That's also been a real theme of my life, like making it, but barely, like even the basketball team, I was picked as the last person, so everything was kind of like, and in my family, they're all like superstars. So that just leads to like a low self-esteem because you feel like it's like imposter syndrome a little bit. You feel like you're making it, but like, are you? So yes, I graduated high school and I ended up in junior college, another like making it, but barely. I went to Gainesville and went to junior college at Santa Fe.
What was that experience like?
Just rowdy. I was just unhinged and irresponsible. I would say my second big experience with alcohol working was I actually got into a car accident in Gainesville, and the guy that I hit on the motorcycle died. And
can you walk us through that story?
Yeah, I was not drinking. I, however, was on my way to pick up a fake ID to go to a bar in my friend's car. So certainly had plans to drink, which I think is what led to a lot of the guilt. I was much like coming here trying to find something that I couldn't find, and turned left, and he was on a motorcycle with his girlfriend, probably thinking I was driving slow because I was like a little bit confused. And he went to pass me on the left when I went to turn left. So he ran directly at a pretty high speed into my door. So he died on impact. She flew over the top of my car, and she survived. But, I was young. I was 18 years old, away from my parents, out at night, knowing I was going to do fucked up things, and ended up in the hospital. My brother came, and just feelings I wasn't even able to be in touch with or cope with. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of like therapy recommended. You know what I mean? I kind of just like got out of the hospital. My parents came to visit me. And then I just started like doing a lot of drugs to like escape how that felt. Yeah. And I remember one specific time I was at a bar and I was in the bathroom, and I remember looking in the mirror and thinking I'm not drunk enough yet because I was sad. And so that was, I would say, my second really marked experience with knowing that alcohol worked, and literally consciously trying to use it in that way, like to outrun my feelings.
Yeah. So do you go on to graduate college?
I did, again, a similar way,
Mhm.
I think when I picked up my diploma, I don't think it was actual diploma. It was like a rolled up piece of paper that said I owed thousands of dollars in book fines and parking fees. But yes, I graduated with an English literature degree.
What did you do with your degree afterwards?
Afterwards, I kind of more followed in my brother's footsteps. He was in sales, pharmaceutical sales. So I pursued that. It took me a while to get into it. But I did that for 10 years.
Okay. And where's your drinking at this point?
So my drinking escalated because in that world, that was back when pharmaceuticals was just really hot and we would entertain a ton and you could take people anywhere and buy them anything. And so I did a lot of entertaining, a lot of making a fool of myself, like I was like the best person probably to go with and you were hoping you were leaving before me, So my drinking started to escalate in the way that dual life just got worse. During the day, I would have, a little suit on and a bun in my hair and that kind of vibe. I would barely work, and then by night I was shit-faced till 3:00 in the morning and driving drunk typically.
Yeah. I feel like in any kind of sales role, but even in the pharmaceutical space, it's that kind of behavior. The drinking is almost rewarded because you're taking clients out, showing them a good time. They're probably spending more with you.
Yeah.
Was that what you were experiencing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we live in a society where drinking, is rewarded and it is just culturally what people do, to celebrate or to entertain. So, I was in my early 20s and, I couldn't have imagined doing that job without it. Yeah. I ended up getting sober and had to, which was very difficult.
Oh, so you were still doing that job when you got sober?
Yes.
You got sober at 27?
I got sober at 27. I actually started seeing a therapist out of the Yellow Pages. That's how long ago that was. And she was like, right out of the gate, you're an alcoholic. Like I later became a therapist and thought, wow, that was like a bold,
claim right out of the gate.
Yeah. She was like, I remember saying like, how do you know I'm a fucking alcoholic? And she was like, because I spent my 21st birthday in a rehab and I'm still sober and I know what an alcoholic looks like. And to this day, I'm so grateful that she was so bold and out of the box with that because I remember thinking, like, maybe she knows,
Yeah.
I ended up seeing her every Wednesday. I'd go in and I would go out. She told me to read the big book. So I bought the big book. I read the big book, probably stoned. And I remember in the big book, it said that if you don't think you're a real alcoholic, go out and try some controlled drinking.
Yeah.
So I literally did this. I went to a place on Atlantic Avenue. Before I went, I bought a movie ticket for myself. I think I knew this was going to be a tough thing to do. I went to the bar and I had a martini. And I thought to myself, I'm going to have 2 martinis and then I'm going to go to the movies. I had 2 martinis and I left and I did accomplish it. I went to the movie. But the way I could explain it is it kind of felt like, if somebody were to scratch your back, but they don't use nails and they just kind of like annoyingly fucking like rub your back. And you're like, if you could just get in there.
Harder.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. It felt like just like,
a little tickle.
Yeah, just like a little tickle. And I was irritated and discontent. That was the worst. I don't even know what fucking movie it was, but it was like the worst night of my life. And I went back proudly to tell her that I had accomplished this, that I must not be an alcoholic. I tried controlled drinking and it went fine.
Yeah.
I failed every time I tried after that.
It's crazy because we can do the controlled drinking. Some of us can, but it's the chaos that sits in the head.
Right.
That's the disease. That's the alcoholism. It's the chaos. The symptom is, the drinking, the drugs, the gambling, whatever it is. The problem is here. And the chaos that goes on. You just set off that switch and your mind is just consumed with the next one. And like, I'm not that elixir, I'm not at that specific point and I need to be there and I can't enjoy, and you can't enjoy anything.
Yeah. I heard once, like if you try to control your drinking, you can't enjoy it. And if you try to enjoy your drinking, you can't control it.
Yep. So Was there a specific event that happened for you to look up the therapist in the yellow pages, like that prompted you to get sober at 27?
Well, as far as to call her, it was just a slow roll of just agony and angst. You know, I thought I was going to die of anxiety. I mean, I was just riddled with anxiety. So I think that got me curious about therapy and like who could help me with anxiety. I wasn't interested in stopping drinking. I was interested if she could possibly help me not be anxious.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw her for a while before I tried to stop drinking.
Did you go through a period where you looked at every other area in your life being problematic rather than the drinking? Like maybe if I just moved, maybe if I just got a better job, or I wouldn't have the anxiety.
Sure. I mean, by 27, even though that sounds young for that, I had tried all of that. You know, I lived in South Beach. I didn't drink for a year. I did smoke a ton of marijuana, but in my mind, I wasn't drinking. So I tried that. I tried moving. I moved plenty. I had already kind of exhausted those things, or just the idea, if I can get this, I'll be happy. And I could accomplish that. And that's the interesting thing. I always say, like, there's really only been 2 areas of my life that I haven't been able to bend to my will, you know? And alcohol was the first. Every time I got in the ring with alcohol, it just beat my ass.
Yeah.
You know, parenting, I would say, was the second.
So you had gotten married before you got sober? Did you get married when you got sober?
So I was 27 when I got sober. I met my husband in sobriety.
Okay.
We both actually had the same sober date, May 30th. Didn't know each other when we got sober, but we had the same sober date. We met at a Starbucks, a nice alcoholic meeting. And we both, I think, were just a few months sober.
Yeah. What was early sobriety like for you? Like the first 90 days, you're newly sober, probably on a pink cloud. It's new to you. It's exciting. What did you do your first 90 days to stay sober?
So I didn't go to treatment. I got sober in AA, recommended by the therapist. So I did 90 and 90. And I loved AA out of the gate. Like, I know some people don't. I loved it. I love the comeback story. I love the camaraderie. And what I really especially loved is, as I mentioned, I come from a really good family who loves me dearly. But sometimes they look at me like, you know? And when I went to AA, just much like you're doing right now, everybody kind of nodded because they knew me and they understood me. And I'd really been looking for that my whole life. And so AA was the first place that I really felt super understood. So it was never a hard sell to me to go there every day. Like, I know that's tough for some people. But so I got really active in AA right out of the gate. You know, I got a sponsor, and I accidentally landed on this woman who was like super focused on the steps, very bright. I mean, my brother took her out to dinner in the beginning, and he was like, "So what are your credentials?" And she was like, "Well, I've done a lot of cocaine and I've figured out how not to." And I think he was horrified, but
sold.
Yeah, but I was sold.
Yeah.
And so I got lucky with that because, you know, sometimes in the beginning you can just ask somebody to be your sponsor and you don't really know what you're looking for. The first person I asked actually was a guy, because I grew up with boys. I wasn't super into like hanging out with a woman.
Yeah.
I asked this guy and he was like, "Yeah, this is not a good idea."
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have just been like, "Sure,
Yeah.
meet me in my house tomorrow."
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got lucky, I think, in that way. And I also fell in love with AA really early, which I'm just forever grateful for.
Yeah. So you meet your soon-to-be husband. It's not recommended to date in your first year. What was that like?
Man, I'm not a rule follower, Kevin. So yeah, I remember feeling guilty about it. That rule, I think, helped us implement some boundaries just based on my sponsor and his sponsor. And we tried hard to, like, you know, have boundaries. And I also, meanwhile, had a high-paying pharmaceutical job with a company car. He was living in a halfway house riding a bike. So, like, that was also a hard sell to my parents.
Yeah.
You know, here he is,
Yeah.
in knight in shining armor.
Yeah, he's got a roommate.
Yeah. a few. Yeah. So that was also interesting. You know, he was like in a sober job, like laying sod and having to get little papers signed at a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I had a company car and a company Amex.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a weird combo.
Dynamic. Yeah. So how long until you guys get married?
A few years.
Okay.
Yeah. So we met. In my mind, I cleaned him up,
Yep.
you know, brought him home. We fell in love. You know, in retrospect, you know, I don't even know what that really means. I mean, both of us were hanging on by a fucking thread, you know. He was tortured by his past and I was terrified of my future.
Yeah.
And we just like clung to each other like little life vest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So you guys get married. How long until you have kids?
Pretty quick. Like I was ready to roll. That's all I've ever dreamt about was being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he had a pretty rough story, a rough childhood. I mean, he was a pretty tortured guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, looking back at it now as a 51-year-old woman, like it was a terrible setup, you know? But we tried quickly to get pregnant and I had an ectopic pregnancy. So long story short, I ended up having to do infertility. So I had to do in vitro.
Mm-hmm.
So, which that's like a whole thing too.
Yeah. And you had twins.
And I had twins.
That's amazing.
Yes.
2 beautiful twins.
2 beautiful twins.
You have 3 kids total.
I have 3 kids total. I have
Okay.
18-year-old twins, a boy and a girl. And then I have a son that's 11 years old.
Okay. So we know you stayed sober. Did he stay sober?
He did not. So he got to about 7 years.
Yeah.
And then he started to just like unravel. He had left me when, so he started to unravel. He really, I think, just started to become haunted by his past, by this idea that, you know, he was an orphan. He lived in a Native American orphanage until he was like 3. I mean, he had a whole story of his own. So when I got pregnant, he started to really like kind of fall apart. And he left when I was 6 weeks pregnant with twins. After doing in vitro, by the way, paying $30,000 to get pregnant and buying a house.
Oh.
So nothing that would have been like any warning signs.
Yeah. So he leaves. He starts to unravel. What kind of drugs was he using?
So he was a meth addict originally, but was 7 years sober. And he didn't start using at that time. And he said to me, and this will only make sense to an addict, he said to me, I'm either going to leave you, be unfaithful, or get high. I need to get the fuck out of this. Like he was so personally tortured. I think that's why I've been to like hours of therapy and every therapist tries to guide me towards anger. Like somehow I need to be mad at him to heal. And I think I've always known that it had very little to do with me. Like he was a caged animal who abstained from drugs and alcohol for 7 years, but never healed the trauma that led him down that road. And when I got pregnant with twins, all that came rushing back for him.
Wow.
And so he ran like his house was on fire, you know? Yeah. So he didn't relapse originally. He was unfaithful and then returned right before I had kids. I accepted him back, which, you know, some of it as you age and you get older, you look back and you barely recognize yourself, you know? But I was also about to have 2 kids.
Yeah, of course.
And I come from a family, like I said, my parents have been together since they're 16 and all 3 of my brothers have married, 2 of them married their high school sweetheart and my other brother married his college girlfriend.
Yeah.
So like, I was not prepared at all to be left pregnant and to raise 2 kids of my own.
Yeah.
So we got back together. Long story short, when the twins were 2, he left again. Same story, just a text, I'm leaving. And that time he decided to start drinking and he died of a drug overdose a few months later.
I'm so sorry. What kind of drugs?
I think just a mix of everything.
Yeah.
I somehow read the autopsy report. I don't even really remember, but I think his goal was probably not to live. I don't think it was a suicide attempt, but I think he knew that he wasn't going anywhere good by using drugs.
So your twins are 2 and he passes away. You're in sobriety. You're what, 7 years sober at this point?
Yeah, he passed away when they were 3 and they're 18 now. So 15 years ago.
Okay. So you're 8 years into sobriety at this point. Is it all hands on deck for you?
Yeah, it's wild too, because the things I've shared with you, which are, by the way, more things than I've ever shared all at once, but I knew how to escape feelings by drinking through the traumas and tragedies I've been through in my life. And then I find myself in this situation. First, the pregnancy, when he left and I was pregnant, I mean, it was hard to get through that. Maintain my sobriety, pregnant, and no real escape, because what are you going to escape with? You can't drink, you can't smoke. I mean, nobody wants to have sex with you. There's not many outlets there, like sugar, basically. Right. So when he left again and then died of a drug overdose, I'm 8 years sober. I literally locked into Alcoholics Anonymous like you've never seen. And thank God, not just for AA, but for the women's support system in AA. I mean, I leaned on them hard.
Yeah.
I've been going to the same Saturday group for 23 years.
Wow. So you had this sober community who just surrounded you and
crazy.
Held you up and walked you through what was happening in your life at that time. And you're raising 2 3-year-olds.
Yes. And that's the wild thing, because parenting by itself is a challenge. Every parent knows there's times when it's hard, right? Parenting twins is harder, I would say. And parenting while you're grieving twins is like, I mean, there are just days that were just wild. I mean, I would just wait till we got in the car and they were in the back seat and I would just cry behind my glasses, or cry in the shower. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you have a job to do and you have to show up and they're little people that need stability and want to have fun, and they don't even know what's going on. There's a lot of things that I've done wrong in my life, but that's one thing I did right. Yeah. And I feel to this day super proud of that.
Yeah. Now, how long? So for someone, let's say, who is a single parent and grieving that's listening to this podcast, that just experienced a tragedy or whatever, even a breakup, whatever it is, they're grieving something. How long after until you started to feel better? Like you started then going to meetings, you're in sobriety. You probably didn't want to do any of it at the time, but you still did it anyways. When did you have a moment of realization where you look back and you're like, wow, I thought of this 50 times less, than I did, a month ago or something like that throughout the day?
Yeah. I mean, the first year was just awful. I can remember crying in every single AA meeting I went to. I remember one time asking this woman, is it okay if I cry here every time? And I just remember a year into it and just deciding that I just didn't want this to be my story anymore. I didn't want this thing, yes, he died. Yes, it was a tragedy. Yes, I'm now a single mom, but I wanted my story to be different. I wanted my story to be, overcoming the adversity, not the adversity itself. Yeah. And I started just focusing on the solution and really sort of rising above that. Yeah. And I think that's when everything changed for me. But it was a mindset first. Yeah. And then emotions started to follow, behavior started to follow, and I started to see myself different. And then truthfully helping other people is probably the thing that really sealed that deal.
You get the phone calls from a sponsee or something. You don't want to pick it up and you pick it up.
Yeah. And to this day, I get phone calls from single moms who've heard my story. Yeah. Or I actually got a phone call recently, a woman whose husband died of a drug overdose and she has a 2-year-old.
Wow.
And like, how did you get through this? And so that's the whole AA model, right? One alcoholic helping another. And then through AA, I've met alcoholic women who've had the same story in the scenario, and being able to help them has ultimately healed that part of me.
Yeah. So a few years later, after going through that, you meet your now husband.
Yeah.
And you guys open this treatment facility. How did that all happen?
So I actually met him before because my husband had left, and, you know, I was pretty much single already. And I had met my husband already. So we dated for a really long time. I think we dated 5 years before I got remarried.
Yep.
He had this big idea to become an interventionist. He was like in the financial world at the time, a sober himself, the product of an intervention. And I don't know, I think when you start giving back in AA and you find an area where you can have a career but still help people, it's just so meaningful and it's not work. And once you find that, it's very hard to return to like a job.
Yeah.
So he had this bright idea. He wanted to be an interventionist. And so he started doing that. And what he would find is he would intervene and get the person to treatment. And then the family would call and be like, hey, now what do we do? They're done. And there weren't a lot of aftercare programs at that time.
Yeah.
So I think that was 2008 or somewhere around there. But we started this little aftercare program, outpatient program. It was just literally he and I in this little office in Delray, just two of us trying to like help people. And that's how Guardian was founded. And we started with that, and then it blossomed into a bigger aftercare program, and then eventually a residential or detox first, and then a residential program. And so we've done that since then for, you know, we've done it well with adults. A few years ago, my twins, who now are 18 at the time, were 16, 15, they both started to struggle, you know, dabbling. And, you know, specifically my daughter was very difficult. And, you know, we realized, I thought to myself, if I get through this shit, because I swear to God, there were times I wasn't sure if I was going to. And the interesting thing is, you know, as evidenced by this podcast, I've been through plenty of adversity, but like nothing brought me to my knees like my teenage daughter. Nothing. And I thought, if I ever get through this shit, I am going to help parents, because there were no real local resources for me. Thank God my husband knew a few people. He knew the guy that founded Family First, and they kind of led us down a few different roads. But that really, once I sort of got through that, I decided that I wanted to open an adolescent program. And so that's really where I spend my time helping. I do some private coaching for teenagers and their parents. And that's really where I've like truly found my purpose and really landed in what I love.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yes.
What were the feelings? You talked about one of the biggest challenges being, you know, somewhat powerless of you know, your kids and them doing what they want to do. What were those feelings like? Why was it so difficult? I understand it's your child. I have a child. And if my child started going down that path, it would drive me insane. But for the listener, what were some of the feelings you were experiencing?
Well, I think sober people are in a unique position of like seeing parenting and kids a little differently. So I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but like anything they did when they were young, I was like, oh shit, is that something?
Is that a sign?
Know? Yeah, like you go back for the cake like 3 times. I'm like, oh my God, you know, or whatever it is. So like, I think you spend a lot of time worrying about this thing, you know, and then when they get there, it feels more out of control because you literally have no control over it. Because for my own sobriety or overcoming adversity and my husband dying or whatever that is, I still felt like I had control in my mindset, how I was going to look at it, what actions I was going to take. And when you're a parent, you have literally no control, especially when they're in their teen years and they're just running wild. You can certainly have boundaries and rules, but ultimately you don't have any control of how they're going to respond to those things. So that for me was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And the fear around where this could possibly go. And I do think I have some PTSD with their dad dying because I basically faced the worst case scenario for a drug addict.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, certainly that lives in there.
Yeah. So it's funny. You were telling me a little bit prior. So your daughter turned out to be okay.
She landed.
Did she go through a program?
No, she never, her stuff was just being wild.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember at 14, she had a birthday party for her and just her few closest friends. And we have a little guest house. So I set it up with like these teepees. Your daughter will have a party like this, these little teepees. And I put little special things in each one. And I was so excited. I took pictures of it, showed it to my girlfriends. I was so proud of myself. And I feel like it was like my last hurrah with her being a little girl. I had all matching pajamas, you know, and it turns out I went to bed and they Uber Eats beer in there. Like so not where I was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so she was just wild, you know, right out of the gate, like stealing my car and just doing stupid shit. And she was really hard to control, you know? And now that I look back, when she was really young, I once took her to a therapist and thought, what the fuck is wrong with this kid? You know? And the lady's like, look, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is she's going to be hard to raise. The good news is she's never, ever going to be talked into anything she doesn't want to do. She's never going to be peer pressured. And that's turned out to be the truth. You know, she's a force.
Yeah.
But she's also super smart and super cool and just like does her own thing. And if I could do it over again, I would have spent less time trying to squeeze the square peg in the round hole and let her be her.
Yeah.
You know, they were in a little private school. She never fucking fit. Never. Not a day in her life. You know, I remember a talent show she was in. Oh, Jesus Christ. You know, I think the winner was like a little pianist, you know, with like a little tie. And she came in like singing a Meghan Trainor song. Like, if I were you, I'd want to be me too was the title. And she just came in just like guns blazing, like no. And I was always trying to make her smaller, like make her fit a little more, make her more like, make her fit for the audience a little bit more. And if I was younger and I was more insecure myself, and I think that's also sobriety. You have years of not fitting yourself.
Yeah, of course.
So when you have a kid, that fucks you up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I wish I could go back to those days and stand in the front row and be like, yes, that's my daughter. And instead I was like, oh shit, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Fucking buckle your seatbelt, you know? She didn't win the talent show nonetheless. But interestingly, they actually had real judges. And this one guy had just like this crazy hair and he also didn't fit in. And he followed us out at the end. And he said, hey, he said, listen, I want to tell you that I voted for you. And he said, don't lose that thing you have. You're a winner. And I remember thinking like, wow, like he was bold enough to say the thing I felt inside that I wasn't bold enough to live in yet. You know, I wasn't bold enough in myself to parent her because she was not fucking around. She wasn't going to conform.
Yeah.
She refused to conform. So I've learned more from parenting her probably than I've learned in my life.
Did you change any of your behavior which resulted in her just kind of finding her way and landing?
Yes. I attribute all of my parents' success to my friend Lisa. One day she was just like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? You're like parenting her, like you're like acting like a stepford wife. Like, why don't you tell her who you really are? Like, I had never told my kids about that I was in AA or anything, you know? I would tell them the truth. I'm going to a meeting. I'm sure they thought it was a work meeting.
Yeah, of course.
Or I don't drink.
Yep.
Right. But I was always afraid that they would be embarrassed or that it would make them feel unstable because they knew their dad died. So I didn't want to be like, and by the way, I'm also an alcoholic. Like I thought that would feel unstable. And so when they were 16, I sat them down and told them the truth. And from that day on, I felt like relief. I wasn't parenting with I had the best trick up my sleeve, which was authenticity, being authentic, right? And like real. And nobody knew better how to be in a room of people drinking and not drink than me. I was telling them, you guys, you can't do this. And they were saying, Mom, you don't understand how hard it is. Yes, I fucking understand. And I wasn't even using that. So from that point on, parenting became more authentic. We became closer. You know, and I think to this day, they both rely on me immensely because I was honest.
Yeah. That's amazing. So as a sober woman with 23 years sobriety, what does today look like for you? What kind of tools have you implemented? I mean, I'm sure they've changed over your 23 years of sobriety. Today, where are you at with your sobriety and what are some tools that you implement?
I would say just serious gratitude, you know? I mean, I'm happily married, you know, and that's definitely a product of being truly sober because marriage isn't easy. No matter how great the guy is, you've got to work through all that stuff and communicate. And all that's a product of being sober, I think. I also have an 11-year-old son who's about ready to hit puberty. So I got to do this shit all over again. And he's a dream. So just being super grateful for all of that and everything that life has given me. And it isn't and hasn't always been easy. I'm going through something right now with my son that's not easy, but I'm still so grateful for being sober because if I parent from this place and live from this place, things inevitably work out. Yeah. So I think the biggest tool I implement is gratitude. It says in the book, we're undisciplined people. You know, and I believe that to be true in some areas. I'm disciplined in exercise, oddly, but I think that's from growing up in the family I grew up in. Mm-hmm. But my mind is a little undisciplined. So the other trick that I've learned is to just like love that about myself. I'm a little wild inside, you know, and so be disciplined where I can. And then where I'm undisciplined, like just accept that because part of growing up in a disciplined family was always trying to chase that and falling short, which led to like low self-esteem. Yeah. So now as a 51-year-old woman with some sobriety under my belt, I make an effort to just like be me and like sit down in that. And like my car's probably a little messy right now, but like I made it here on time. You know, I do a good job with exercising. That was beaten in my head enough. So like, and I use that also as an outlet. Yeah.
Well, what I was actually just going to ask you, what does exercising do for you mentally?
Yeah. Without it, I'm in trouble, you know, and so is everybody around me really. Like I like the adrenaline. I like, you know, pushing hard, going fast. The older I get, that just gets a little weirder because you don't quite look the same in the gym. You know, you look up, you're like, wow, not quite what I felt like. But my dad has instilled that in us. All three of my brothers are big into fitness. So I think it gives me an outlet. It also gives me a space that's just mine. You know, I don't exercise with my husband or my kids. Yep. So it's an outlet. And it also contributes to just physically being happier and looking better, feeling better, all that stuff. Yeah.
So you wrote a book.
Yes, I did.
Do you want to tell the audience what the book is about?
Sure.
And do you have a title?
Yep. It's called Unperfect, which is kind of a little sneak peek into like my childhood where, you know, things were set up this way. I didn't fit the mold. I kind of like was the black sheep. And then I got sober and thought that meant that then I needed to fit the mold. If I had no excuse of doing drugs and getting high, then I needed to do these things. And then when that didn't work, because that's just not who I am, I really fell apart. And so it's really been an unlearning for me that I don't need to be perfect, right? I just need to be fucking me. I need to be raw, unfiltered myself. That's where I thrive. That's where I feel good. And the book is really a bit of a memoir into how I became a parent, which parenting alone after tragedy struggle, and then kind of how I've had to overcome my own stuff. And then how all of that has shaped my parenting. So it's really like 18 chapters of all the years of my kids and how overcoming adversity has like shaped my parenting, you know, parenting from a place of guilt and how to like rise above that and then how to wrestle my daughter to the ground and then let her free, you know? So all of that. So, I finished the book. I'm super excited about it and now just trying to get it published.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
I'll put a link
awesome
in there. Hopefully it'll be out by the time this airs and this goes live. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. You are awesome. Your story is going to help a lot of people. And thank you again for taking the drive.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.